Hello, students. Let me start with a question. Have you ever thought about what happens when our body's own defense system, our immune system, begins to fail? Just imagine living in a world where even a tiny cold could turn fatal. That's the harsh reality of AIDS, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. The word acquired tells us that it is not inherited from birth but develops during a person's lifetime. Syndrome means a group of symptoms that together define the condition. Since its first report in 1981, AIDS has spread globally and claimed millions of lives, making it one of the greatest health challenges of modern times. So let's carefully explore what makes AIDS so dangerous, how it spreads, and why prevention is our strongest weapon against it. AIDS is caused by the Human Immunodeficiency Virus, or HIV. HIV belongs to a special group of viruses called retroviruses. Unlike many other viruses, HIV carries its genetic material as RNA and has an enzyme that can turn this RNA into DNA once it enters a host cell. Now, how does HIV spread? It is transmitted mainly through 4 routes. 1. Unsafe sexual contact. 2. Transfusion of contaminated blood and blood products. 3. Sharing infected needles such as in intravenous drug use. And 4. From an infected mother to her child during pregnancy or childbirth. Notice something important here. HIV is not spread by casual touch, hugging, or sharing food. It needs specific conditions to move from one person to another. Now let's dive into the fascinating and frightening biology of how HIV works. Once inside the body, HIV attacks our helper T lymphocytes. These are white blood cells that coordinate the entire immune response. Step 1. HIV enters macrophages and uses the enzyme reverse transcriptase to convert its RNA into DNA. Step 2. This viral DNA gets integrated into the host cell's genome. Step 3. The host cell now begins to produce new viruses which bud off and go on to infect more helper T cells. Over time, as the number of helper T lymphocytes drops, the immune system becomes weaker and weaker. The body loses its ability to fight even simple infections. That's why AIDS patients suffer from so-called opportunistic infections. Diseases like tuberculosis, pneumonia, or fungal infections that normally wouldn't harm a healthy person. At first, HIV infection might seem mild, perhaps just fever, diarrhea, or general weakness. But over the years, as T-cell counts drop, more severe problems appear. Chronic diarrhea, dramatic weight loss, prolonged fever, and recurring infections. Since the symptoms develop slowly, we rely on diagnostic tests. The most common one is the ELISA test. That stands for Enzyme-Linked Immunosorbent Assay. It detects antibodies against HIV in a person's blood. What makes AIDS so dangerous is this long silent phase, sometimes 5 to 10 years, during which a person looks healthy but the virus is actively multiplying inside their body. So, can AIDS be cured? Unfortunately, the answer is no. There is no permanent cure yet. But we do have antiretroviral drugs, often called ARVs, which slow down the virus and prolong the patient's life. They reduce the viral load but cannot remove HIV from the DNA of host cells. That's why prevention is our best defense. Safe sexual practices, screening of blood before transfusions, using disposable needles, and public awareness programs are critical. In India, organizations like NACO, the National AIDS Control Organization, are leading the fight by spreading education and making treatment accessible. Think of prevention like locking your doors. It's always safer to stop the intruder before they enter, rather than fighting them once they're inside. So, let's wrap up. AIDS is caused by the Human Immunodeficiency Virus, a retrovirus that attacks and destroys helper T lymphocytes, leaving the immune system defenseless. It spreads through sexual contact, contaminated blood, shared needles, and mother-to-child transmission. With no cure available, antiretroviral drugs only prolong life. This is why awareness, compassion, and preventive measures are so important. And equally, it's vital to remember, people living with HIV deserve care, dignity, and inclusion. not stigma. I hope today's session helped you understand why AIDS is not just a biological disease, but also a social challenge. Biology teaches us that protecting life requires both science and humanity. Until our next class, keep wondering about the marvels of life and health and see how much biology shapes the world we live in.